What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we've been seeing quite a few games around the Switch just kind of leak out ahead of their announcements, and it now looks like more games have actually appeared online through a ratings board, which makes me wonder if there's maybe some sort of event that Nintendo and these third parties could get together and, actually announce these games. We'll talk about that one here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, as we had our first indication around sales come back, and it does look like this game is going to get some redemption for its original release on the Wii U back in 2013, and the situation for Sony and stick drift with the PS5 DualSense controller appears to be getting a bit more official now, as a class action lawsuit has been filed. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton, and if you're new here to the Small Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Dbrand and their PlayStation 5 dark plates. These are their faceplates, or their shells that they had announced, changing the white design to a matte black finish, and they had some pretty cool little Easter eggs in there, like changing out the smaller symbols inside of the plastics on the inside part of the PS5 from the typical PlayStation symbols to a different take on it, we'll say, one that more mimics it in a different way. But it seems that after saying, hey, Sony, you can sue us if you feel like we can't do this, and Sony decided not to, they've been very successful with these, now going into their fourth wave, which isn't even supposed to ship until May. And I'm very curious to try to get a hold of some of these so we can do a video on them, as I did get generic shells as well from what I think is AliExpress, and they're selling them through eBay, and they fit well enough. It makes the whole system like matte black, which looks really cool, and I posted a picture up on Twitter about that, but I still would like to compare them to the Dbrand shells and maybe even get one of those center stickers, the vinyl pieces for the center of the PS5, and see how all of that looks in person. So if I can get a hold of some of these shells, we'll do a video on it and compare it to the AliExpress one. Should be fun. Also, it looks like Grezzo is hiring for a new project, and after seeing the job descriptions for this, people have wondered if it could be something for the Legend of Zelda anniversary that we expect to be coming up here later on this year, and it could extend into the end of next fiscal year, so the end of March 2022, as the Mario anniversary is still technically going on right now. But let's take a look over here. Nintendo Everything had this, spotted the listing and translated it, where they say the approach to the game's design will be medieval and stylish. It won't be photorealistic, but takes elements from reality and puts a design twist on them. The UI designer will be for HUD, menus, and such. So they do have a couple of job listings, and the fact that this is for like the UI, like designing that, it's not really something you would necessarily hire when you're almost done the project. You would hire that on earlier in the project. So looking at this, yes, I get it. Medieval, stylish, that's a way that they could vaguely describe a Legend of Zelda project. And the fact that they have done so many different Zelda games for Nintendo, whether it's Ocarina of Time 3D or Majora's Mask on the 3DS, or most recently Link's Awakening on the Switch, it kind of makes sense, but it does seem like something that would be a ways off, not something necessarily to be coming out this year for the Zelda anniversary. Oh, and one nice thing about the Switch that we have talked about quite a bit here, but does get overlooked at times, are that the third-party game file sizes tend to be quite a bit smaller than, say, like the PlayStation or the Xbox counterpart. This case, though, being Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time. I was very curious to see how large this game would be on the Switch. Well, it being about 45 gigabytes or so on the PlayStation 4, we can see on the Switch here, this according to Nintendo Life after the eShop updated, it's about 9.4 gigabytes on the Switch. Now, there is a possibility for a day one patch that could push this over 10 gigabytes, but that would still be, about a quarter of the size of what we have on, say, the PlayStation 4. And it's nice to have that on the Switch because, of course, we have limited space when you first buy the system and you got to get a micro SD card. But the fact that we are dealing with smaller file sizes is much nicer on things like your bandwidth at home, or just how much space you have left on your SD card. So just another example for these smaller file sizes on the Switch being Crash 4. And guys, some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with these Nintendo Switch titles that appear to have leaked online through a ratings board. And we've been mentioning games that have been popping up. We just talked about Republic Commando just leaking out through Nintendo's own servers that got updated with a patch. That game's not announced yet, though, and there it is. We've also talked about the Plants vs. Zombies listing that showed up on GameFly. We talked about Stubbs the Zombie that, while yes, appeared on an Xbox achievement listing, that seems like a game that's probably going to go to most platforms, being done by Aspyr. Well, now we can see some other games being announced through a ratings board. Gamatsu actually went ahead and did a screen grab of this, so we can take a look at it very easily here. Now, we can see at the top, Genshin Impact appears to be going to PS5 as a native games, so not one through backwards compatibility, which that's good to see that. Then we have The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, that being for PC, PlayStation Network, and Nintendo Switch, and this was leaked out through that Capcom leak that had like the ransom and all this, and Capcom said we're not paying that, and then it got leaked online. That was part of it. So we knew that this would happen eventually with The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, but it's good to see here it now has a rating and it appears set to be coming out, I guess, sometime soon. Good to see that. Secret Neighbor, which is the sequel, I believe, to Hello Neighbor, that being for the Switch from Tiny Build. We have Snow Runner, that came out last year, I think early last year in 2020. That from Focus Home Interactive, also for the Switch. And then Tales from the Borderlands. This has been rated already for the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, and I guess they just had to finish up their last few ratings here, this one being on the Switch. Now, typically when we start seeing these ratings pop up, it does mean they're kind of just tying up all the loose ends, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, and getting ready for an announcement, which does lead into the idea of, all right, is Nintendo getting ready to finally do something here with a partner showcase to get 2021 kind of moving along here for the Switch? It does seem like the timing is lining up. I don't think Nintendo is going to do a big general direct. That's something that people have been bringing up. Okay, they didn't do it in January. They're probably going to do it in February. Not necessarily, because a Pokemon Direct is coming. I mean, look, let's be real here. I think everyone expects it. It's a big anniversary year for Pokemon. This is like the month to do it in, to get everything ready to go. So that's probably what's up next. And Nintendo has a stake in the whole conversation around Pokemon, obviously. So they don't want to try to overshadow it or even necessarily compete with it. But to have things set up for a third-party partner showcase makes a lot of sense, because they don't care if Pokemon's going to do some sort of event. They just want to start getting games announced for the Switch, and Nintendo probably wouldn't mind to get some of those third-party games rolling along here, and the partner showcases work well. So I do think we are seeing a lot of these games get kind of collected up, and it seems like a lot of them are ready to be announced, with Republic Commando just apparently sitting on Nintendo's server, even getting an update already before it's even out. Like I said, Stubbs the Zombie, we mentioned that one. Plants vs. Zombies, it's all lining up. So I don't know when they're gonna do it. It could be any day now, seriously. And the way it works out with these news waves, you know how this goes. I put up a news wave, and then that morning they just announce it ahead of time. Maybe they'll just drop it. That's something else they like to do. We'll see. But like I said, any day now, I'm sure there'll be some sort of video they post on YouTube or live stream that they announce. Next up, let's talk about Sony and their PlayStation 5 DualSense stick drift. We just talked about this the other day, how a law firm was collecting information, seeing how many people, I guess, would fill out the form and talk about their experiences with their very new PlayStation 5 controller drifting around on them in a first-person shooter or an adventure game where you're moving your character around with like the left stick, and as third person, you can see them just kind of wander off in one direction when you're not even moving them. Well, it does look like that class action lawsuit has been filed. I guess enough people signed up for it. We can go over here to Eurogamer, where they say this week, Schwartz, Kreiner, and Donaldson Smith, the firm behind the ongoing class action against Nintendo over Joy-Con drifts, so they have some experience there, I guess, asked affected customers to get in touch via an online form. Clearly, that call to action did the trick. The DualSense lawsuit has now been filed in the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York on behalf of a plaintiff called Lamarck Turner of Virginia and other affected customers in the U.S. against Sony Corporation of America and Sony Interactive Entertainment. Now, in this lawsuit, they do describe, obviously, the issue around the stick drift and it being so new, and some people apparently not wanting to buy the PlayStation 5 if they were going to have stick drift, all of those kind of things, right? But they also mentioned that the DualSense, according to them, uses the same type of analog stick compared to the DualShock 4, or so similar that Sony should have been aware, because there were issues with stick drift with the DualShock 4. And that is something I have seen online. I've read about that. I've heard people mention that. I did not experience any real stick drift with my DualShock 4 controller, like the purple one I had. Never had any issues with that. But I'm sure if you're someone who's played maybe a ton of Call of Duty on your PlayStation 4, you may have noticed it at some point as the controller gets worn in. However, we're talking about controllers here, like the DualSense, that just came out. Like, some of these were mentioning people buying the DualSense controller day one getting drift. That sounds like some Joy-Con drift stuff right there. And now we're facing a generation where all three of these companies, Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, are facing class action lawsuits that are being dealt with in their own ways through arbitration or the court system or all of this around stick drift. Like, what is happening to these controllers right now to where all of them are having issues that are noticeable enough to have to be pushed into a class action lawsuit? We'll see what happens here. Generally, class action lawsuits take forever to do anything with, and then you get a couple of dollars at the end of it. So I guess we'll find out if anything serious happens here with the DualSense controller. Next up, let's talk about Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. We have the UK sales charts here to go over that includes the launch of this game. Now, let me set the stage here for you. In 2013, the game came out on the Wii U, and the game didn't even make it into the top 10. It actually was number 14 at the time. I think it launched on the exact same day that the PlayStation 4 came out in the UK, which, yeah, that's not going to be great for the game when there's a brand new, really hyped up system with the PlayStation 4 coming out. However, this is a bit different now. The Switch is on fire. Like, literally every game that comes over from the Wii U sells really well on the Switch. So let's head over here to the top 10. And yeah, you can see right at the top there, that's right, Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury immediately jumps to number 1 on the charts here. It actually sold 180% more than the opening week that it did on the Wii U back in 2013. Animal Crossing at number 2 moved down from number 1 because of Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. FIFA 21 at 3, Spider-Man Miles Morales at 4, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 5, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War at 6. Hey, Little Nightmares 2 at 7. That's actually really cool to see that. I believe it came in at 42% on the PS4, but about 37% on the Switch. Then we have Minecraft at number 8, that being on the Switch, Assassin's Creed Valhalla at 9, and Ring Fit Adventure at 10. Now, according to GamesIndustry.biz, Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury was behind the other 3D Mario games that have released on the Switch in terms of first week sales, that being the Mario 3D All-Stars Collection and Mario Odyssey, but it was ahead of the 2D Mario games like Mario Maker 2 or New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. Great name for that one. But this is still very, very good for a game that certainly underperformed when it first came out on the Wii U, and even then, the game still sold over 5 million copies, and I think a lot of us looked at this game and thought it would do very, very well on an install size with a base that didn't really own a Wii U. I mean, there just weren't that many people who bought the Wii U, so for a lot of people, this is like a brand new game to them, and Bowser's Fury turned out to be a lot better than I thought it would be. So I'm very happy about that. I did a video on it, and if you missed it, check that out because I'm hoping this is the direction they go in for 3D Mario games going forward. Now we'll still have to see how this does on like the Famitsu sales charts in Japan and on the MPD sales charts in the US, and eventually Nintendo will tell us how well it's sold overall from their end. But yeah, Wii U ports continue to roll along, continue to top sales charts here. So Nintendo, I'm sure they're running out of games, and I would like to think that they would at least do something like, okay, you know what, we got all these Marios out of the way, let's go do Xenoblade Chronicles X just to get that moved over. Come on, Nintendo, you doing all these other Wii U games, just give us one. Yeah, give us Xenoblade Chronicles X, get that moved over. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Microsoft and studio acquisitions. There is a rumor going around, and it's still being kind of disputed right now, about the direction Microsoft could go in for their next studio acquisition, because they've said themselves they're not done looking around and seeing who they can pick up to add to their Xbox game studios. And I mean, really, I think after they went after and picked up ZeniMax and Bethesda, that deal is still technically pending, but I think most people expect it to get done. Anything's possible, right? Like, we were laughing about Sega before. All of a sudden, those Sega talks and views on that became real serious. People are like, whoa, they may actually be able to grab Sega. But what about another studio, one that might be a little more attainable for them? Well, the rumor going around actually has to do with Techland. Now, we can see this tweet here from Ed, who says the studio Endgame ACG was referring to, I did some digging and asked around, I'm fairly certain he's talking about Techland and Dying Light 2. This was on the Defining Duke podcast, where Jeremy Penter, who's ACG, I follow him on Twitter, has some very, very well done reviews on YouTube, mentioned that Microsoft was looking around at a certain studio, doing some hinting, and it appears, at least from this end, that it could have been Techland. Techland is doing Dying Light 2, and when they showed that off with some gameplay, it looked really good. I'm very interested in this game, but then it got delayed and it's kind of disappeared now. It started to reappear a bit where retailers started to post about it, a special edition, and it sounds like they're getting ready to show it again later on this year, but it feels like there were some struggles going on with the development. However, a lot of developers and publishers have been struggling with the situation around COVID and remote work. However, we did actually get a comment from the community manager at Techland. We can go over here. This from Unky, who said, I'm getting a lot of DMs about Dying Light acquisition, so I'll answer here. There was the same rumor floating around the internet 1 year ago, and the situation didn't change. Techland is an independent studio, and it was not acquired by another publisher. Okay, so I will admit, if I was the community manager, I wouldn't admit it on Twitter either. There's no reason to. And the fact that you can say, oh, they weren't acquired by another publisher yet, that's the thing. This is certainly a rumor. Is it possible? Microsoft bought Bethesda. Yes, of course this is possible. I'm sure it could happen. If Techland wants to be purchased or wants to become part of the Microsoft Xbox Game Studios, yeah, it would probably happen because I don't think Microsoft would have any issues picking up Techland, provided Dying Light 2 is actually going to work out. That's the biggest thing now. It looked super ambitious from what they showed us with that gameplay, and a lot of times see a vertical slice. We saw what happened with Cyberpunk. Exactly. So I am glad that they are at least working through this with delays, and who knows what's happening in the background. They're targeting a lot of different systems. So I'm hoping Dying Light 2 doesn't turn out like Cyberpunk. There's no indication that it necessarily will at this time. It just appears that they were having a hard time with development, and who knows, maybe Microsoft is going to come in and pick them up and throw Dying Light 2 on Game Pass and just bring Techland in for some other projects that they have in mind. But as of now, it is a rumor. However, I'm telling you, with all the rumors going around, this seems the least crazy. Hearing things like Microsoft and Sony are looking at Square, all right, that one might be a little crazy. And before we take a look at the comment of the day, let's go over to the poll that I posted up on Friday. I post these up every day after Newswave goes live, and you can vote on them and also comment down below. So let's take a look here where I asked, is God of War Ragnarok releasing in 2021? 32% of you said yes, it's Sony's big holiday game. 68% of you said no, it's going to be delayed at least. But I think we're just used to Sony delaying a game. Even if we're like a few months out from the game's release, they'll delay it a couple of months anyway. And I mean, again, we've seen what happened with Cyberpunk. You know what? Sometimes a delay is all right if that's the other result, is getting a Cyberpunk style performance and game and all of that. But I will say this, my confidence in any of these games releasing as Sony was expecting them to has been shaken a bit with the placement of Ratchet now in 2021. That actually leads us into our comment of the day. This being from Jabero saying, Ratchet & Clank being released in the summer tells me that many of Sony's games have been pushed back to 2022. I think Horizon Forbidden West will be Sony's major fall release, and I think you might be onto something there, because as soon as they said Ratchet is a June game, a game that I thought may have launched right next to the PS5, as a lot of us did since they showed us quite a bit about that game for the PS5, it was a bit surprising that it's not coming out for like 7 months after the system. So that means they're going to try to fit a ton of stuff between July and probably November, because they're not going to release something in December necessarily. So yeah, something is probably going to slide to 2022. And really the benefit here for Sony is they didn't put dates on any of their games. So if there's an internal delay, we'll just never know about it. It's just like, oh, well, we didn't say a date, so this is the date that it's actually coming out on, right? So I think God of War very likely could be an early 2022 title. And I mean, the original God of War on the PS4, God of War 2018, that came out in April, and it worked fine. So sure, they could have that one come out in March or April, and it wouldn't be an issue. I'm more curious now about Gran Turismo, because that is one that I could certainly see getting delayed into next year. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how Sony lines all these games up though. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit the like button, it really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. There's these Nintendo Switch games that just keep leaking out now through the ratings board even here, and it does kind of feel like something's happening here soon, doesn't it? Let me know what you think about that one down below. Also, what do you think about Microsoft and Techland? Do you think Microsoft's gonna buy them, or do you think they have another studio in mind? And if so, which one? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.